Hello, my name's David Cole and I'm Technical Director for Penstock Solutions, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about ISO 14001. Well, ISO 14001 very quickly, and I'm not going to go into great lengths with it, is really so that a company looks at its environmental sustainability responsibility and how it impacts the environment. So the purpose of 14001 is to actually allow a business to recognise how it impacts the environment, how it impacts sustainability, so it can set out a scheme and a plan to move forward on an ever-improving process. So ISO 14001 looks almost at everything that environmentally could impact a business. So it looks at air pollution, it looks at its waste streams and its management streams, how it controls energy, so simple things like how your lighting works. And another one, obviously on the waste stream, is how waste leaves the site and how you actually impact in items that you send around the world, how your carbon footprint impacts on the business. But it also then looks at how you would impact on water pollution, which is more our field of work. So most people would employ an outside consultancy firm to look at their ISO 14001, draw them up a sort of plan, which is their scope document, which means their achievable aims, what they achieve, and then year on year you try to improve on that and add a little bit more sustainability to your business. But it's quite a simple process really of gaining yourself a consultant who will help you then develop that scheme and then putting it into place to get accreditation. Well, 14001 is rather an open qualification really, and what we need to look at really is a lot of the food plants, manufacturing plants. I think the car industry really was the biggest starter of ISO 14001 in the early 90s, when they drove really to look at how they were going to be sustainable because of what they are as a motor vehicle trader, and so all of their then tier suppliers became ISO 14001 compliant. But the food industry as well, and they've also got their other ISO grades that have come into it. So really it's anybody really with manufacturing or a business that needs to look at how it impacts on the environment. So with the ISO 14001, you've got all these industries that are meeting it and doing it. What you've got is you've got key people, so you've got your environmental managers, your health and safety managers, but ultimately you've got your board members who are there responsible to drive ISO 14001 within a business. It's got a position that by showing that the business cares and understands its environmental impact, it can move forward. Okay, so ISO 14001 shows that a business understands that it's got an environmental impact on the world and is showing that it actually is interested in improving how it does things. But it doesn't actually say that it's got everything right, and it should never be a line in the sand that says, right, we've got ISO 14001, we are compliant. We quite often go to sites that will say to us they've had a pollution incident, and they'll look at it and they go, but we have a pollution containment plan in place, and that's it. There's no movement there. The idea of ISO 14001 is it is a starting point, and there never really is an end. You should always be adopting new ideas, looking for new sustainable technology, and always looking for onward improvement. ISO 14001 is a very, very general overview of, we're looking at a business, and if you take a car manufacturing plant, for instance, water pollution is an issue if a pollution event occurs, but also they're using loads of energy, tons of lighting, loads of water, loads of resource. So the whole process really is huge, because almost everything that business does has an impact on the environment. So you can't really just look at ISO 14001 and say, a company that has ISO 14001 will have covered all the places, will have everything under control on the environment, certainly will have control of every point of pollution incident, will know all about its energy, will all know about all its sustainability. It's just a starting point, and hopefully what it does is it drives a business, if you've got good directors and a good management team, to actually pinpoint areas where it needs to make improvements ongoing. So ISO 14001 isn't compulsory. If a company doesn't have 14001, it doesn't mean it's less environmentally friendly or less environmentally aware. It just might mean that type of accreditation isn't really necessary. I think it's really important that just because you're a business showing that you've got ISO 14001 doesn't actually mean you're any better dealing with the environment and sustainability than a company that doesn't have ISO 14001. All it means is that you've bothered to take out the time because you see it focused in your business. It might actually be that your customers make you have ISO 14001 rather than the fact that you really wanted it in the first place. It may make very little difference to how you run your business. So ISO 14001 again is as I've said, is so over encumbering. It covers everything that it's not always up to date with latest best practices. We quite often go into a site that will say we are ISO 14001. We've got fire water containment as part of our policy. What is your policy? We have a drain mat over there that we put over the top of that manhole to stop any fire water runoff escaping the site. 20 years ago, that might have been a really good idea. Probably now we know from experience and loads of different incidents that that wouldn't probably work. So the site may have ticked a box, but it means that they probably haven't moved forward since ticking that box 10 years ago. The problem with having any accreditation, it can give you a bit of a safety jacket that makes you think everything is okay, but you can't prove anything unless you've done some sort of evidence based around that specific area field. If you haven't covered it and you haven't actually done it in great detail, the chances are that your ISO 14001 will have asked a question, have you got fire water containment? And somebody along the route has gone, yes. And that might be that they've bought a spill kit and they've plonked it next to the final outfall of the site. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've actually met the right best practice guidance. So for anything really, you want to follow our 6-point checklist. Step 1 is to understand the regulation. Understand how that regulation actually addresses to your particular site. Risk assessment, understand your risk. Carry out a design and design your scheme that will give you full pollution containment. Implement that design so you know that what you've got is now working. Monitor, manage, and then document what you've done and move that along forward as best practice changes. You keep up to date with new technology. If you'd like to know more, why don't you contact us at www.penstocksolutions.co.uk.